Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of New England Sports Weekly. And as always, I am your host, Sean Metcalf. And as you can see on the screen tonight, I did put up my Twitter and my Instagram handle. It's the same thing, as you can see, at SeanMet28. So as you can always do, always send me any questions, any comments about the show, anything, just send it right to my to the Twitter or send it to my DMs as well. Working on getting a show account up here and running as well shortly. So we'll release that as well. So you can all send that directly, as well as have as many ways possible for you all to talk directly to me. And just a reminder that if you're listening live right now, the live chat's open, so you can just pop in a question there. And so it's been another busy week here for the Boston sports scene. As you probably all know by now, tonight is the schedule release for the NFL. So that's one of the big goings on here tonight, is also the Boston Bruins looking right out of the box here, as we always do start things off with the out of the box segment. The Boston Bruins have clinched a playoff spot, as well as they will already have a date set with the Washington Capitals, as they will play them Saturday at 7:00. So that should be a great watch. We'll get into that here later on, but as well. And the Boston Celtics, they continue to disappoint. Let's just leave it at that for right now. They're just, they're awful. They are god awful. They're just so disappointing. I sound like a broken record, because for the month that I've been doing the show, I've sounded like that every single episode that we've talked about the Boston Celtics. They just have been putrid, god awful. Unfortunately, we'll have to get into those Celtics here later on in the show. But those are the big topics for the winter sports teams. One heading in a better direction that looks like a actual cup contender. The other doesn't look like they would be able to compete in a game of flip cup right now, as they would probably walk into the room and pee their pants and lose. They just have been that goddamn awful. So we'll see. But as we move along here in the regular season for the Red Sox, they own baseball's best record, as they play the second best record in the series tonight, game 2 against the Oakland Athletics. So the Red Sox have continued their winning ways. We'll get into some of the concerns with that bullpen that they've had, but that's really been the only thing you can complain about. Maybe Franchi Cordero playing a lot more than you would want to, at least at this point in his career. But as you'd like to probably see some guys come up from not double A, but triple A to fill that spot. But we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But as always, that is our out of the box segment here on New England Sports Weekly, giving you that news that if you haven't heard over the last week, just getting you caught up on the Boston sports scene. And as mentioned earlier, probably not that I wouldn't say the biggest, because it's still off season, but it's for a lot of people around here anyways, it was highly anticipated as far as the regular season release schedule for the New England Patriots. Is football really is king. If you're really getting down to it, it's a 24/7, 365-day sport, even when the Super Bowl ends in February. And just a reminder to everybody that the NFL did change their schedule for this upcoming year, as they will go into a 17 regular game season. So that's going to push the Super Bowl back into mid-February. But anyways, as I was saying, the Super Bowl is, once that Super Bowl ends, it's not like the NFL season really ever truly ends, because you have things like the draft, and earlier before the draft, you have the combine, and again, the draft. seeing what your future holds for your team, free agency mixed in there as well. And then some fan bases, it all depends on the schedule release, if that's really a big thing or not. Then you got training camp, but right now it's the schedule release. And for Patriots fans this year, it was kind of anticipated, because when the season ended last year, as the Patriots, you knew they were going to have to play the NFC South, and you knew who the rest of them were, but just because of the formula, because you have to play your division twice, once at home, once on the road, then it always rotates. If you've won the division, then you have to play the division winners in the AFC, or vice versa if you're in the NFC. Then you'll rotate all of the divisions as well. So the AFC North, AFC South, and the AFC West. And then they've always thrown in rotating the NFC East, West, South, and North. I was going to say Central. I'm thinking I'm mixing up baseball here, but as far as the Patriots were concerned, and they also have thrown in that 17th game as well. Seeing as I mentioned earlier, they've decided to go to that 17 game schedule, which this year they already announced way back, and I believe it was March, that it was going to be the Dallas Cowboys that the Patriots were going to have to face at home. So that was already a given. So we already knew that before things started here for the Patriots. But as I just mentioned, the big one that we all knew is they were going to have to play the NFC South. And if you were not paying attention, living under a rock, or something drastic happened, and you didn't know that a number 12, I'm not sure if you remember, used to play in New England, kind of was a good quarterback, won a few Super Bowls here and there. Tom Brady. Tom Brady went to the Bucs last year, broke everybody's hearts after leaving, after 20 amazing years with the New England Patriots. Oh, hell, I was 10 years old. Yeah, 10 years old, because I was born in 91. I was 10 years old when Brady took over the starting job from Drew Bledsoe back in 2001, after Mo Lewis changed the course of history for Patriots fans. It sounds so bad, because I actually do like Drew Bledsoe, but for the betterment of the Patriots history, because Drew Bledsoe was good. He was always serviceable is doing him a disservice. He was the number one pick in '93. Was a great quarterback for this team, but anyways, I think he probably had met that ceiling. He took the team to that one Super Bowl against the Packers in Super Bowl 31. So not like he was well worth that first overall pick. But of course, Brady came in. We all know the story. We're not going to go. That's going to be way more than an hour to get into that. But we all know the story there. Brady ends up winning the 6 Super Bowls, becomes the GOAT, the greatest of all time. It absolutely is obliterated pretty much all the records. The last one that's standing in his way is the all-time passing yards record, and that is only about 1,200 yards or shy of that before Brady breaks that. And he's ironically probably going to do that when he faces the Patriots, because the schedule has come out. And that's actually, as we speak, the NFL Network and ESPN and a lot of the other networks out there have their draft day specials, so that they're all releasing the schedule as of right now. So the leaks, though, came out this morning, and the confirmed first game was against the Miami Dolphins, opening up at home. So that should be interesting. We all know Miami is on kind of an upswing, depending on what you think of Tua. I'm not a big backer of Tua. I never was on the tank for Tua. Not that the Patriots were, but as far as the general mentality, I was never one of the tank for Tua guys. But that's been confirmed as far as Miami's going to be coming up to New England, and they've drafted really well. I liked what they did in the draft, especially getting Jalen Waddle, who could be a home run threat coming out of could play the slot a little bit, could play outside. He can go everywhere. He's a gadget type of quarterback. So, and actually, as I was talking about Miami, the schedule, I'm looking at it right now, has officially been released. So bear with me here as we take a look. I mentioned Miami. At Miami, they go to New York and play the Jets. That should be another easy win, even with a new head coach and a rookie quarterback. That's a stew for, I wouldn't say disaster, but that's always a good stew for the Patriots to at least to be in, because they Belichick absolutely eats up rookie quarterbacks. And even though I like Robert Saleh, the former defensive coordinator from the Niners who came over to be the Jets head coach, I'm just not a big fan of rookie coaches and rookie quarterbacks having to go against Belichick. That's usually does not end well. So anyways, that's game number 2. Then they're home versus New Orleans. And then remember, Drew Brees retired. He'll be in the booth for NBC for Sunday Night Football, or at least on that NBC pregame crew. So it's going to be Jameis Winston, who I'm really neutral on Jameis Winston. He had that 1 year, his last year starting for the Bucs, threw for 32 touchdowns, but also threw 30 interceptions. So a mixed bag there with him. So if you have that back and forth there with him and Taysom Hill, I think that could be a win there, but always going to be tough facing Sean Payton. So that'll be interesting there. And then the one that did get leaked out earlier and now is just confirmed is that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who we all knew were going to have to come to Foxborough anyways, that was part of the. You knew that just based on what they released earlier before the schedule came out, because they always release the opponents, because the division, the next NFC division and all those you're going to play. So, and they always release who's going to be home and what. But this is the actual schedule which week it's going to be on, and they play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers again at home. So Brady will be making his homecoming on Sunday Night Football. So kind of ironic, as we kind of talked about with Drew Brees. He's now moving over to NBC. He'll be doing the Sunday night in some capacity, either in the booth or the pregame show. So he'll be there. So it will be interesting to see if Brady, who is, I believe they did the math earlier, he's about, like I said, 1,000 to about 1,200 some odd yards shy of breaking Drew Brees' record. And the math was he needed about 289 yards a game to get there, which is ironically what he had averaged last year with the Bucs, is that 289 passing yards a game. So somebody did the math earlier, and with that 289 a game, he would need 4 games to break Brees' record. And it's been confirmed now. It's Sunday Night Football in Foxborough. Brady's coming home to his rightful kingdom, and he'll potentially break Drew Brees' record on Sunday Night Football in his old home, where he should have been all along, playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. With Drew Brees in attendance. So it's a whole. This is going to be amazing. And to be honest, I don't know how to feel about this. This is one of those games where it's like you have Tom Brady coming home to a place that they should have never let him go. And I know we could debate this back and forth as far as if the Patriots forced him out or Brady wanted to leave, or it's a combination of all these. That's a whole nother broadcast in its own. But just in general, though, it's going to be amazing just to see what happens here with Brady coming back to Foxborough. And Belichick is going to be burning the midnight oil for the rest of the way out here. As far you knew he was going to have to face Brady anyways, but you knew now that he knows the date. That's just going to be an amazing week to be a Patriots fan. It's going to be hard as well, just because for 20 years we all were diehard Brady and Patriots fans, because obviously Brady took us to the promised land. 9 times he took us to the promised land as far as getting to the Super Bowl, and 6 times he finished that job. So, I mean, you can't ask for more than that. I mean, like I said earlier, he's the GOAT. So, but you know that Belichick does not want to lose to Brady, and that's going to be the part there. It's like I wear the laundry of the Patriots. I mean, as you can see there, I mean, it's all I have Patriot stuff everywhere. Grown up a Patriots fan. I mean, like I said, I was born in 91, so I probably around 95, 96 is when I started to kind of know about football, and kind of saw a little bit about watched the Drew Bledsoe era, the Curtis Martin before he took the poison pill and went to the New York Jets, and Parcells left. So kind of caught some of the tail end of that era with the Parcells group before Pete Carroll came in and screwed up this franchise. But really, obviously, everything really started with Tom Brady as far as what happened with this franchise. Because, yes, the Patriots were competitive before Brady got there, but we all know that it was Belichick and Brady that just brought this team to greatness. And you just know that it's going to be hard for me. It's going to be hard for all of you out there that are Patriots fans, because we spent 20 years rooting for this man. He, like I said, he brought us to the promised land, finished the job 6 times, brought us there 9 times. And he broke records all along the way. He gave us so many great moments. I mean, too many to count. I mean, we all know the Super Bowl 51, Super Bowl 49, Super Bowl 36, and on, all the games against Peyton Manning, where they were shootouts till the end, the great comeback when Manning came here with the Broncos. Such legendary games. And like I said, there's going to be too many to count, but just so many memories, and obviously Belichick was right there. He was the mastermind, and obviously Brady became a mastermind as well. So he was the protege, but still, you just know that it's going to be so hard, because I'll be honest, I'm going to be conflicted, because last year watching the Bucs and the Patriots, they didn't play each other, so it was easy to root for both. It was obviously I'm a diehard Patriots fan until the day I die, but it's still it was still Tom Brady. That's our guy. That's my guy. T.O. That's my quarterback. So it's really it was hard to detach yourself as a Patriots fan to say, no, I'm not rooting for Tom. Of course you are. You don't want to see him not do well, just despite what your feelings are towards if he was the one that broke up the relationship, or however you see that. But it's so hard to make up your mind as far as what's going to happen. But you just know Belichick is going to be on his game. He's going to be drinking about like 5 cups of coffee and trying to come up with that game plan to stop Brady. He's not going to sleep for probably that whole month of September until Brady gets here. And a question from your boy Jay Smooth in the chat: will the Patriots, will the over/under on the Patriots, will they go over 7.5 wins? All right, give me just a second, Jesse. And let me see here. So I do think they will be over the 7.5 win mark. I think they'll probably, I personally think they'll get to the 10 win mark, which got to adjust. That's like the 9-7 level now with the 17 game schedule. So I think they will get over that mark. It's going to be difficult from the standpoint that I think that Mac Jones is going to be the starter from week 1, because it's just so I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and say that Cam stunk last year and that they're going to have to go with Mac Jones, but I think they built this team to where they can win with that rookie, because you're not giving him a Tom Brady offense like down in Tampa where it's Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, all these tight ends, and where it's not based around a run game. This team, it's kind of like that 0-1 Patriots team where you're asking him to manage the game until those skill levels develop, which I think that's why there's enough talent around him is basically what I'm getting at. There's enough talent around Mac Jones, and this schedule is it's tough on the back end. I will give them that, because I'll just run through this quickly because I know we kind of got off there on the Buccaneers train. So as we pick up from there, you have the Texans, you're in Houston, so that's an automatic win. You get the Cowboys. Even with Dak, that defense is still awful, even after drafting Micah Parsons as well. You got the Jets. You got you're at home against the Jets week 7. Then you got the Chargers week 8. Panther at Carolina. Then this is where things start to get dicey here. Is you have to play Cleveland, who last year looked really good. They finally, with Baker Mayfield and all that talent, they've come to the promise as far as all with everybody that they brought in. So that's going to get tough. You have to go to Atlanta on Thursday night, week 11, and say what you want about their defense. They are loaded offensively. Even if you trade Julio, they're still loaded. Then you have to go to Tennessee, who's always on the playoff radar. Buffalo, who just had a coming out party on week 13 in Buffalo. That is a Monday night game. So that stretch right there is killer. Then you finally have your bye in week 14, which seems late, but again, 17 games, that's probably, you adjust that. That's like a week 12 bye. So not too bad. Then they have to play Indy, then Buffalo, home against Buffalo, and then against the Jags and Dolphins. So I think they'll load up on wins in that early part of the schedule there. I think they'll beat Miami just because I just don't trust Tua, and I think Belichick has enough behind him with all the talent he's brought in, and he can scheme his way through that. You got the Jets win. I think the Saints I just don't trust Jameis Winston to keep the ball on his side of the field. I think the Patriots with their improved defense, I think they'll end up taking the ball away from him. So that's probably a win. So basically, I'm not going to go the whole Mike Francesa win loss, but basically, I just see them loading up on wins early in the season. They'll probably drop the game against the Bucs, but it's very winnable there early. But after that week 9 game against the Panthers, I think it's going to be tough for them to go through that stretch with the Browns all the way through the Bills until the bye. So I think that's where you'll be lucky if you can split there, just because I think, in my opinion, if Mac starts, that's going to be tough, to be honest. It really, really is. So I'm optimistic. Like I said, it's a 10-7 season, which I think you're going to be competitive for a wild card spot. I just think Buffalo's got too much going on with that offense there with Brian Daboll. He's worked really well with why is it escaping me? Kyle Allen, the quarterback, Josh Allen, the quarterback of the Bills. So they've done pretty well working together. They brought in Stephon Diggs. And if they can find a running game, that offense is going to be so scary. And that defensive front, especially the line, has done pretty well. So, yeah, I think so. I know that was kind of long-winded there for you, Jesse, but I do think they're going to go over that 7-5 mark. I just think with the talent that they brought in, I think they will end up being a 10-win team and pushing for that wild card spot. And I just hope that they do play Mac Jones, because it's just scary just to sit there and think that you're going to have all this talent and you're going to put an incompetent quarterback back in there in Cam Newton. Yeah, I know you have to play all the disclaimers that, it's Cam Newton's a nice guy. Cam Newton was a good leader, blah, 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 all that. But his arm was shot. all he was a running back out there at quarterback. So let's leave it at what it is. He's not a quarterback anymore. He's a fullback that can occasionally throw the ball. So I'm just saying I think if you put in Mac Jones from week 1, you have a better chance of winning and competing right away, because I think he is pro ready. Despite, I know, not going to rehash everything, but just what I've said in the past about Mac. I wasn't he wasn't my first choice in the first round, but I don't hate him. So I think he is going to be a pretty good pro. But so that was really the big news there for the schedule wise. If you heard there's going to be some interesting games. I know everybody's going to, like I said, circle that Buccaneers game. Those Bills games are going to be fun now. And especially now that you have a quarterback that's not going to fumble in the last 2 minutes of the game and cost you with Cam, I think you'll actually have those will actually be really competitive, and hopefully it doesn't. Well, at least like what was it, like week 7 or 8 when they played the Bills, unlike that last week 14 game. Although I did win my fantasy championship thanks to Stephon Diggs having an absolute beast of a game. So that was the only saving grace for that game. But I think they'll be competitive though. So it'll be interesting here, and things will probably start to slow down for the Patriots until we get to July when training camp comes. And who knows, maybe this year if they let people back in. I went a couple of years ago to training camp, so might if they do, I might take a couple days off and go down and maybe get some upfront footage, some up close and personal footage from down in training camp again this year, and we'll share that on the broadcast. So we'll see how that goes. But the NFL is going to start to ramp down here as the season as we get more into the off season, more into the nitty gritty, just training camp stuff. So that's we probably won't talk as much Patriots unless something comes up here. But as far as the winter sports scene is concerned, the Boston Bruins, they have already clinched their playoff spot as they will play the the Washington Capitals. Sorry, I was looking at something about the Tampa Bay Rays here for a second. But anyways, they will take on the Washington Capitals, who I think that was probably, in my opinion, it was probably the second choice that I would have had for the Bruins. Even though Pittsburgh is the top seed in the division, I still think they play better against Pittsburgh here, at least from what I've seen. Now, the one that I obviously didn't want was the Islanders. That was the one that I was just scared to death. I just didn't want to see. And I know it's probably a little PTSD from watching a lot of those games and just seeing them just collapse here in a few of those in like the third period there against the Islanders a few times. And I believe at one point it was the reverse, basically what the Bruins did to the Flyers. It was the Islanders did that exactly to the Bruins. I think that at one point they were the Islanders were 5-0 against Boston, and obviously Boston's a great team, and I honestly think that they are going to be a true cup competitor now that they've kind of found their second line, and they found more scoring. So, but it really, to me, I wanted Pittsburgh, but as things worked out here, as the Bruins got things together, and as probably the Bruins, the Caps, and the Penguins all kind of separated themselves in that last couple weeks of the season, it's starting to get a little more clear that as Boston kind of got that secondary scoring, they were going to be probably that second or third seed. So you knew it was probably going to end up being Washington. So like I said, it'll be interesting. Just hopefully we don't have to see too much of Tom Wilson there. Maybe oh my God, that was another story in of itself. Is if some of you don't know at this point, Tom Wilson absolutely cheap shotted one of the Rangers who was down on the ice and in a scrum last week, and let's just say he didn't make many friends that night. And then because he ended up punching, I know it wasn't Artemi Panarin, because that was actually Wilson went to him next, but it's escaping me. But he ended up punching the Rangers player in the back of the head while he was on the ice. So and then that weekend, it was like 2 or 3 days later, they ended up facing the Rangers again, and Tom Wilson. That was just an old school brawl. I believe there were 5 or 6 fights in the first 5 minutes of that game, so it was entertaining to watch. See those brawls and just see some justice get doled out to Tom Wilson. And if many of you can actually remember back, I believe it was in February, a game at the Garden, Brandon Carlo was up against the boards, and Tom Wilson did hit him late, at least in my opinion, I thought it was. And he didn't even get a penalty, didn't get a boarding penalty, got nothing out of it. And Brandon Carlo was out with a concussion for a while. So of course, I don't know how Tom Wilson keeps getting away with it. It's just it's maddening. It's frustrating. I know I probably should, and I know I've kind of gone off the rails here against Tom Wilson, but it's just it is timely because the Bruins do have to face the Capitals here. Now, obviously, for me, I would predict that probably it's going to be the Bruins in 6. That's my opinion. I just, for me, I don't trust Washington trusting 2 rookie goaltenders. So you no longer have Brandon Holtby, who is kind of like a Bruins nemesis, kind of a Bruins killer there. So, I just, to me, I think this is going to be one of those years where the Bruins go on a deep run. It's going to be interesting because it's not the same playoff setup because obviously with the divisions getting scrambled around and I think getting jumbled up here because of COVID, they had to kind of think on their feet here. So you don't get the usual first round against Toronto, and you don't get to watch Toronto fans absolutely melt after the Bruins break their hearts like they do pretty much every year. So that would come on later down the road if it happens at all. But I'm excited for this matchup against Washington because I think they're, as far as skill level, I think they're going to be pretty evenly matched on the offensive side of things here. Like I said, where I think the Bruins have the advantage is going to be at goaltender because, like I said, the Caps are relying on 2 unproven commodities there between the pipes. Now, on the Bruins side, you have Tuukka Rask, who we all know is one of the top 5 goaltenders in hockey. And I know everybody has their own opinion against Tuukka. If you're on the Tuukka train or if you're one of those that thinks that he's been along for the ride during some of their cup run. I'm not talking about 2011 where he literally was along for the ride. He was the backup to Tim Thomas, but I'm talking about the 2013 and 19 runs the Bruins have had. But I mean, he's been one of the most elite goaltenders, or one of the most, listen to me there. He's been one of the best goaltenders since he took over for Thomas. Yeah, everybody's going to have their ups and downs. And to me, honestly, when they lost the cup in 2019, that wasn't his fault. They just, it was more, that was more on a lackluster performance in Game 7 at the Garden. So I'm not putting that on Tuukka. I'm a Tuukka defender. I like Tuukka, and I've never had an issue with him. And last year kind of sucked that he had to leave the bubble where the Bruins had a pretty good shot at advancing. And to me, though, it's just things came out later on that things were going on with Tuukka's daughter. So that is what it is. So you have Tuukka, and I'll have to see what the playoff roster obviously isn't out yet. So I'm hoping that they do go with Jeremy Swayman as the backup because as good as Yaroslav Halak has been over these last couple of years, this year, especially probably the second half of the season, Halak hasn't been that same solid backup. He's had some clunkers in there. He's had some games where when Tuukka was out with his back injury that he had, when you had to rely on him, and then you had to bring in Dan Vladar, and Darth Vader, can't let that one go. It's May, so it's Star Wars month. But anyways, then you had to bring up Jeremy Swayman, the UMaine product, and during that time span when it was Halak who was the starting goaltender. Yeah, they of course they won games, but it's still you still didn't feel the same confidence even the last couple of years that you had with Halak, at least the second half. At least in my opinion, that's how I felt. And then when Jeremy Swayman came up and kind of injected some of that youth, some of that young talent, because he's been down in the system, and he was one of those guys that's been pegged to kind of be the future for the Bruins at between the pipes here. So it will be it'll be interesting. But as far as but to me, as far as the Bruins go, I'm going to be I'm excited to see here what they're going to do. And obviously, the reason that I think they're going to end up having a long run is at least for the Bruins, is that they found their secondary scoring with Taylor Hall. And I know we've touched about this before, but he really has been amazing. And that goal that he had the other night, where he basically, it was Dangle City there, and he got the overtime winner. I mean, he was a first round pick for a reason. So it's not like he doesn't have talent. It's just, I think it took a little bit longer for that talent to kind of come out, and he's just kind of bounced around from a few teams there. He won the Hart Trophy, the MVP trophy in the NHL back in 2018 with the Devils. So we know he's very talented. And I just think he got stuck in Buffalo, where it was really a bad situation for him to be in. But I do, but I just love what he brings to the table, and I honestly hope that he ends up signing long term with the Bruins, because I think it will be I think that I don't obviously think that you can't pay him more than you pay Pasta and Bergeron and Marshy, but as far as you need to bring him back, they've been searching for this secondary scoring, and you can go on down the line of veterans that they brought in that just haven't worked out, and now I think they finally found somebody with Taylor Hall that they can rely on. So going into the playoffs here, especially against the Capitals, with that first line, of course, arguably the best line in all of hockey. Then you have that second line, who now with Krejci and Hall have found chemistry there. I think you're just little bit deeper than Washington at this point. So I like where they're heading. So as far as the Bruins go, I think they'll win it in 6. I think, in my opinion, I think this is a team that actually can make it to the Cup this year. I think they're hitting their stride at the right time, and that to me counts for a lot. If you're hitting your stride this late in the season, momentum does carry over. I know everybody talks about if it does or it doesn't. I think, in my opinion, if you're playing well this late in the year, it can't do anything but help. And the Bruins are playing very well. They almost won against the Capitals with their taxi squad basically last night. So I think they're in a good spot. So I think this Bruins team, will make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Book it down and probably make fun of me later on, probably in a month or so. If that doesn't happen, I'm all for it. You send me your tweets, you send me everything else. That's fine to me. But I honestly believe that this team is going to head to the Cup. But because I think this is going to be one of their second to last, or in that neighborhood of one of their final go rounds as far as making to that far into the playoffs, especially with. And I'm talking more with the core they have with Bergeron and Marchand, who are getting up there into their mid 30s. So, but that's really that's how I see things going. But as far as the Boston Red Sox are concerned, they're in the middle of their second game against the Oakland A's, as it's now a 2-1 A's lead. I really have been very surprised how well things have gone. if you told me back in March that they were going to, at this point in May, that they were going to have the best record in baseball, I would have told you you're nuts. They really have surprised me to this point. And they've been hitting. They have a middle of the order from the two spot all the way down to number 6, which could probably rival the Dodgers, the Yankees, you name it. Right now, I think they probably have the best middle of the order in baseball going. Because right now we have Alex Verdugo hitting over 300, is driven in close to 20, has 4 home runs. Then if you look at JD Martinez, Rafael Devers, Xander Bogaerts, I mean, those guys are all in consideration for MVP right now. I mean, we'll see once the season go how far it goes, and if they're all still going to be in the same in that same room contending for an MVP. But I mean, they're all veterans. They're all proven, all except for Verdugo. They're pretty much they've all shown in years past that this is who they are. They've all come rounded back into form. So I'm excited for what the Red Sox have going right now, and of course the starting pitching. You can't use the term 5 and dive anymore, not because it's anything wrong with it, but it's just every baseball team, every major league team, their starters don't go past 5 innings anymore, pretty much, unless you have special circumstances. It's really the average now is you go 5 innings and give it over to your bullpen. If you get 6 innings, 7 innings from your starters, then you're cooking. Then you really got something going on. So, but right now they're most of their starters are going that 5+ innings. They're giving you quality starts, at least as far as much a quality start as 5 innings can be. They're giving it to you. Now, here's where we get to one of the big issues. At least I know it's kind of nitpicking here to kind of complain about something with the Red Sox as hot as they've been, but that bullpen, it's in the month of May, they now have an ERA of 6.15. At one point, it was actually in the 6.3s in the very start of the month. But this was a bullpen that to start the season was actually pretty good. I mean, putting Matt Barnes aside, Matt Barnes himself is all season long has been great. Been great the whole way through. But as far as things have gone so far, though, getting into the month of May, this bullpen it hasn't been the same. The last night against the Oakland A's, you had Darwinson Hernandez, who on his own has some of the best stuff on the staff, starter wise or relief wise. He has some of the best stuff. Insert your clip of Rick Vaughn from Major League. You got to teach this guy something before he kills somebody. That's where he is at this point in time, because he'll have one game where he'll strike out the side. He might go into an inning of the third or whatever it may be, and look sharp. But then he'll come out for like two or three games in a row, and he just won't. He'll look wild, out of control. He can't spot his pitches. That's what ended up happening last night. You got a good start from the Red Sox, and he just, as soon as Cora called to the pen, he ended up, I believe he walked 2 because I think he came in the inning before. But basically, my point is that he came in, he had bad control. And then the Red Sox let a win slip away from them, basically, at that point. So it's just been frustrating to watch. Like I said, Hernandez has been up and down. Adam Ottavito, who a lot of people, including myself at one point in time, thought that he could be your closer. He was a closer out in Colorado for a little bit. Then he was also played in New York. He had a one bat outing last year, but other than that, he pitched pretty well. So basically, wherever Ottavito has been, he's been really good. He's got that 95, 96 mile an hour sinker. He's got good off speed stuff. got a good curve. So it's all there for him. And he's shown it in the past. It's just this year, for some reason, he's taken I wouldn't say nosedive because he hasn't been that bad, but he has times where it doesn't seem like his command is there. It doesn't seem like it just doesn't seem like everything is firing all at once for him because Baltimore, you're playing the Baltimore Orioles, and you can't get a damn batter out from Baltimore. That's what was frustrating. So for somebody that has closer pedigree and that's done it in the past, it's just irritating just to see him to step on that mound and not be able to get that clutch out where I know you've been able to do it in the past. And then you just run through some of those other guys that they've had in the pen, and it's just been frustrating to watch just because you saw them back in April. They were able to get those outs. They were able to come in, shut the door on bases loaded situations or in a log jam there where they needed that out late in the game, and to get it over to Matt Barnes, they were able to do it. And it just seems like since the month of May has hit, it's just been like somebody's waved a wand, but not in a good way, over that bullpen outside of Matt Barnes. It's just been so it's like I said, it's been frustrating, and it's hard to put your thumb right on it why they've been that bad and why they've had an ERA north of 6 at this point. But again, baseball is going to be cyclical. So probably the next show that I have, or maybe in 2 shows from now, I'll be talking about, man, this bullpen's been blowing everybody away. They're shutting everybody down. And this is one of the best bullpens in baseball. We'll all overreact to it. But just at this point in time, though, if you were going to pinpoint one thing that's wrong with this Red Sox team, it's that bullpen. But luckily, the bullpen is one of the areas that you can fix in a short order, that you can it's an easy fix. It's not like you have to go find a power bat and pay the whole farm for them, or get a starting pitcher, which that also you have to pay the whole farm for. So those are 2 issues that are harder to fix. They just brought back Brandon Workman, who they traded to the Philadelphia Phillies, who they had actually ended up getting Nick Pivetta, who's been an actual revelation here since he's come over to Boston. So they did get a steal there, but you can, guys like Brandon Workman, you can bring him back, and he was lights out his last year in Boston, his last full season before getting traded to Philly. So if he can reclaim some of his stuff, then you'll have another late inning arm that you can get there. And then you always got to look around to some of those cellar dwellers out there, like the Baltimores, the Detroit Tigers, places like that have veteran arms, veteran relievers that they're willing to part with, that are having good seasons. You don't have to give up the farm. You just trade a player to be named later, or a really low-level prospect, or just a spare part that you're hanging on to on the big league roster and the minors. So you can find those. You can find those out there. They're cheap. So that I'm confident that they'll be able to, if the situation doesn't resolve itself internally, that you can also go out there and get a cheap alternative that hopefully can help them turn this around. And then again, you can always got to keep in the back of your mind Chris Sale, who is not there's no real schedule, but if you kind of look at how Tommy John goes, he's probably going to be on schedule about the end of July, beginning of August, where he'll be able to come back. So that could push somebody like a Garret Richards, who surprisingly has done pretty well since his jacket in the cold comment came out a couple weeks ago. He's pitched pretty well, but so maybe slot him there, maybe Pivetta, somebody like that you could push to the bullpen as you get later in the season if they need to, and also keep him on lockdown there just in case you need a starter. So basically, and actually, just bring up Pivetta's name here. Did forget to mention that earlier on. Nick Pivetta actually is on the COVID list, not because he has it, but because he got his last portion of the vaccine. So he's having some symptoms that he's trying to get over. So it'll be interesting to see how things go for Pivetta there. But I did forget to say that earlier. But basically, my whole point here is that if it's internal or if you end up trading for somebody, it's an easy fix. That's something I'm worried about. I'm mildly worried about, I should say, at this point. But it's something that is fixable. The other part, if we're going to nitpick here, is their outfield. This one is more concerning to me, honestly, than the bullpen is. You have Franchy Cordero, who just couldn't find water if he fell off a boat. It's been that bad for him. And Hunter Renfro has started to turn things around a little bit. He looked pretty good in that Baltimore series. He hit an absolute missile to center field. I believe it was at 458 feet. So he had a pretty good shot that he hit there. So I'm starting to come around a little bit on Renfro. I could live with Renfro if you end up getting an everyday bat there in the outfield, but just Franchy Cordero is not doing it for me anymore. I need to see him go down to AAA, play in Pawtucket, get your at-bats, get your 300, 400 at-bats, and then if you start to play well, maybe you call him back up. But he just needs to get more at-bats because he's been so injured over his career. It's not even funny. I'm not saying I didn't want them to trade Benintendi, but man, I just hope that some of the pitchers that they got back for him end up working out over Cordero, just because Cordero to me is Willie Mo Pena 2.0. That's it for me. It really isn't. There's nothing special. Yeah, he's got a lot of power. So didn't Willie Mo Pena, but he also struck out a million times and was just he was just a jag, just another guy. So I don't want to see this experiment last any much longer. Right now, bring up Danny Santana from AAA, from Pawtucket. I keep calling it Pawtucket. They actually just moved to Worcester, so they're the Woo Sox now. They actually just opened up, and one of the guys that I'd like to see the Red Sox bring up here shortly, Jarren Duran, their top prospect, actually hit 2 bombs yesterday in the home opener for the Woo Sox. So we'll talk about him in just a second. But until Duran is ready, I think you should bring up Danny Santana, who, if he does well, maybe you can put Marwin Gonzalez and put Hunter Renfro, rotate them and out, make that more of a platoon. And then, but basically, I'd like to see Danny Santana come up here, who had a pretty good season a couple of years ago in 2019 with the Texas Rangers, hit 28 bombs and was pretty productive. So he's a proven major league bat. So if you get him up there, buy some time until Jarren Duran is able to mature and able to handle upper level pitching, because before, trust me, in spring training, I was all for bringing him up, and I was all jacked up and jazzed up about Jarren Duran. He just added power to that frame, because before this, he probably had a ceiling of about 10, 12 home runs a year. But now he's one of those prospects that I think has added legitimate 20 home run power to his frame with his swing now. So I'm excited for Duran, but I think you do have to pump the brakes here. He's still very young. He's still a guy that's learning. He seems to be a fast learner. So I don't think we're going to have to wait till like July or August. I think maybe end of this month, maybe, if he really pushes it. But sometime, I think more likely sometime in June, probably the middle of June, I think we'll see Duran come up. And I don't think this kid will disappoint. But it's really been difficult to watch the production come out of that outfield, especially with Cordero and Marwin Gonzalez. And Gonzalez is a guy that's kind of surprised me that he hasn't been able to produce. He's been a veteran that's produced in this league. So it'll be interesting. And I just hope that they end up finally bringing up, like I said, Danny Santana to kind of relieve some of the issues here and kind of brings a little bit more punch to the bottom of that order, which I'm really disappointed that Bobby Dahlbeck is really that those 2 games of the Orioles hasn't kind of jump-started him here, because he's one of those guys that I thought would be able to lengthen out that lineup. So there's still time for him to turn around, but as of right now, I think if you bring up Santana, I think that's going to relieve some of the issues, and I think that kind of buys you some time to get some of those younger guys some more at bats, and make them major league ready. So it hasn't been too much of a disappointment. It's like I said, it's really been nitpicking to say the least here. So we'll see how things go as far as the bullpen and the outfield. But for the most part, though, this team is just a machine. They're just picking up wins here, and they're finding ways to win. They're so exciting to watch, and I'm so excited to watch this team throughout the summer. This isn't going to be like last year, so everybody can basically relax, sit down, have a beer, and it'll be a fun game. Now to the part of the show where I told you I wasn't going to be too excited, and every week it's not fun to talk about these guys, but we have to talk about them, and that would be your Boston Celtics. They are hitting rock bottom once again. They came out against the Miami Heat, who they're not a great team. They're a playoff team as things sit, but they're not the Bucks. They're not the Nets, definitely. They're not the Sixers. So this is just one of those teams where it's so difficult to sit there every night and watch. And to be honest, if the Bruins are on or the Red Sox are on, if the draft was on, I'm watching that before I watch the Celtics. They've just been so disappointing. Because every night you think maybe they'll do it. Maybe they'll get out of their funk. Maybe they'll be able to finally find that groove, but it just doesn't happen. You've had back-to-back really disappointing losses, and it's who's going to light a fire under their ass? It's definitely not going to be Brad Stevens, Mr. Oh, I'm a New Englander now. I swear at people in traffic, and I get my Dunkin' Donuts, and yada 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 yada. Yes, I'm a asshole. And I have my moments. And listen, Brad, X's and O's wise, is a good coach. He wouldn't still be there at this point, this long in his career, if he wasn't an X's and O's guy. Let's be honest. That's you can't stay there that long. I just don't think he just isn't. He's not the type of motivator they need. Because Jason Tatum, as good as he is, he's a cornerstone for this franchise. He's going to be a cornerstone for this franchise as long as he wants to be here. And hopefully he doesn't turn into like what the modern day NBA star has been and just decides to leave. But to me, it's just been disappointing because you have a potential top 10 player, top 5 player, if things break right, if things go right. I'm not saying he's a top 5 now. Don't misconstrue that. But you have an ultimately talented kid there that he's still 23, 24 years old, and then Jaylen Brown's right there with him. But those should have been 2 building blocks that should have just elevated your franchise to another level. And it just seems like they're stuck in neutral this whole time. And it's so frustrating because, especially with Tatum, it just seems like he'll go into ISO situations and he doesn't pass the ball. He doesn't try to open things up, where I'm not saying every time you have to do that. There's going to be times where you will need to have it in your best player's hands. But I'm just talking about throughout the game where it's just like, okay, I'll take 50 million shots here. But at the same time, why don't you try passing it? Try to be like that. Because now basketball's positionless, so we could really call him a point guard if we want to at some point. I know he's not, but I'm just saying it's positionless. So if you can facilitate the ball, pass it around, move it around, try to open it up so that later on in the game, that when it is in your hands, when we want you to take that shot, that you don't have 5 guys draped all. I know that's not it, but you know what I mean. It's like 2, 3 guys that are all over you when you get double teamed. At least there's going to be a threat of somebody else out there that's going to be with, because and I did forget to mention, I can't believe it has escaped me, but Jaylen Brown now is out for the year. He's done. So the Celtics playoff chances just went from probably on a thread to being on life support. So it already wasn't looking good for the Celtics. And now you've lost depending on who you talk with, either your second best player or your best player. If you're either Tatum or Brown, whichever one you support is the best. But basically, you're in dangerous territory here right now. So it's going to be interesting, and just Tatum, it's just frustrating because it's all there. He's a great player, but it just hasn't come to fruition as far as him being able to take his team by the bootstraps and drag them all along and say, no, we're going to win this damn game. We're going to do it now. It just seems like I'm going to take my 50 million shots a game. I'm going to try to get my 30 points a game, my 20 something points a game, and hopefully we'll win. And hopefully everybody else shows up. No, they're just lacking. They're lacking leadership, and it's so easy to see. And I know some people will point out to Marcus Smart, things like that, but I don't think Marcus Smart's type of leadership is getting through this team. And I don't think it's what this team needs from his standpoint, because sometimes Marcus can be very me oriented and he kind of can be abrasive, but not in a good way, because there are some times where those abrasive people in some ways it works out, but it hasn't been like that with Marcus. So I just think that Danny's going to have his work cut out for him, and it's not a good free agent crop. And so there's really no good avenue to go down to improve this team. So you're really looking at trades. Trades is going to be the best way to get it done. But then again, the Celtics salary cap, he's not in a good place as far as them being able to bring in like a free agent or bring in like a big time player unless they match salaries, and you got to go through that whole song and dance. But they're really not in a great place as far as their salary cap. So they're not. It's going to be difficult to see what Danny devises here to come up with a situation. But it's just so disappointing, because at one point in time, just a couple of years ago, 2019, 2018, it just seemed like this team was going to be on the rise. They had all the talent in the world, and then obviously all the Kyrie situation happened, but they did bring in Kemba. And even though he had the knee situation, he came up, played pretty well. And then these last year and a half or so, he's had all the problems with his knee. So it's just been so disappointing with what's happened here, because they've had all the chances, all the talent, and honestly, Danny just needs to go back to the drawing board here. And to me, really, the only person that you can seriously say is not tradable is Tatum. He's your building block. Everybody else, even Jaylen Brown, but I'm not trading Jaylen Brown unless it's a very good package. I'm not going to trade him for pennies on the dollar. No way in hell am I doing that. But I would seriously consider doing it if you get a good package for him. I would do that. But as far as this team's concerned, though, it's really Tatum, and then everybody else is up for grabs. I don't think you're going to be able to trade Walker when all is said and done, just because of the health issues. But if you could find a way to package him and get him out of there, not because I like him as a person, and when he's healthy, he's a good. I like him out on the court. He's a decent scorer, but I think at this point in his career, that needs more reliability, and you need to try to see if you can invest your money in a better way there, and see if you can get something for Walker. But it's just going to be difficult because they're, like I said, they're not in a good spot with the cap. It's not a good free agent pool. So it's really up to trades, and there's no guarantee with that. So, and they're not, and obviously the Celtics aren't going to be in a lottery situation. So that's probably not going to work out for them either. So, it's going to be interesting, and I honestly would rather see them lose early on in the playoffs and kind of give that reality check to the Celtics, and just maybe that will jumpstart them. Maybe as far as going into the offseason and going forward, that they need to have a better group going forward. They need to try to find talent that will mesh better with Tatum. But it's going to be interesting to see from that standpoint. I mean, obviously, I'll watch. It's torture, but I'll see how this goes for the Celtics, and hopefully they are able to They only go on a short run. I know that's you don't want to see that from your franchise, but oh no, I only want to see them lose in the first round. But I honestly think for their situation going forward, they kind of need that reality check that no, you're not going to get to another Eastern Conference for the 4th out of 5 years in a row here. So it's like they need something to happen, something to kind of wake them up. And I think that's what would happen if you have an early exit in the playoffs, and just hopefully Danny makes the right moves this time. And I think that you might have to say goodbye to Brad. And to me, as much as I like Brad as a coach, I think he has to go, just from the standpoint that he's not getting the best out of this team. He's had a roster full of talent, and he's just not getting them over the hump. Now, right now, I don't have a good alternative for him as far as who should be, because I'm not sure who's going to be available here in the long run, realistically. But if you could find somebody that's like an Eric Spoelstra, then I would love that. But I just don't think that's going to happen. So it's going to be certainly a long, interesting offseason for the Celtics, and getting back into the actual offseason instead of the COVID shortened one. So it's going to be it'll be fun to see how all that unravels here. So I hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode, as we touched on a lot here. And if you have any questions, as you can, like I said earlier, as you can see on my screen, hit me up at Sean_Met28 on my Twitter, or on my Instagram. Hit me up in the DMs, or on Facebook at Sean Metcalf. Like I said, we're going to have the show accounts up and running here, hopefully by next week, if not very shortly thereafter. But no, we'll get all your questions in. We'll try to answer them next week, and we'll have a Bruins playoff game to break down, and actually a whole playoff first half of a series with the Bruins to talk about. More Red Sox as the regular season rolls along. See if they can keep up with that best record in baseball, and the Celtics. We'll see if we can fend off some more Celtics depression here. But I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week on another episode of New England Sports Weekly.